The traditional approach, it's not working because it's right now grounded in fear and control. Rules that are causing that if you don't do this, there's going to be retaliation. Rules that are telling us that I have full control and you don't have a voice or an initiative. That is what the approach that we're using in many of our industries and companies, and even in schools, sadly, are based on grounded fear and control. And we need to eliminate that. Then we're using punishment a lot in the schools, and this is something that we definitely need to work on. There's restorative practice, positive behavior interventions that we can use, and trauma-informed strategies that we can use in schools instead of punishment, because that's causing a disconnection. And we're dealing with kids and adults that were already disconnected from society because they were in almost 2 years in isolation. And we can't be in a situation where it's me against you. It has to be a situation where we're working together, we're collaborating together. Everyone has a voice, everyone's feelings are respected. Everyone is part of the decision making in order to create that strong connection and build those strong relationships. Then we see punishment is the behavior focus and keeps both the adult and student in a struggle. And we see that a lot. They want to have control over everything, and there's a power struggle. I'm the authority figure, and I'm not taking away the authority figures from those that have it. However, is the connection piece, the relationships that you create that are the ones that are going to allow you to establish your vision, your purpose, your guidelines, your expectations, once you build those connections. Rita Pearson, make sure you're muting as soon as you come in. One of the things Rita Pearson said is that kids don't learn from adults they don't like. And I agree with that 100%. And same happens to us as adults. We're not going to learn or pay attention or have the proper respect from a person that we don't like, or a person that we have not been able to connect with or establish some type of relationship. And that is why it's so important that we eliminate the punishment and we talk about a little bit more of how can I help extinguish this behavior or improve this behavior. How can I help you to understand what you're feeling and matching your reaction or your response to the size of your problem, or how I can help you to understand what you're feeling so we can collaborate and work together to improve your behaviors. Okay. This is an estimated 2 in 3 children are exposed to traumatic experiences that have the potential to impact the brain development, social functioning, and ability to learn and engage in school. That's 2 in 3 children, which means that we have them in every single classroom. Every classroom has trauma, and we all have trauma, right? Some are more severe than others. Some have more ACEs than others. But we all have some type of trauma, but we have kids that have been 2 in 3 children. That's alarming. And I'm sure, and this was in 2014, and we talk now 2022 after a pandemic, after 2 years of quarantining and isolation. There's no doubt that that number is probably higher. And they're experiencing that potential, but we all know that when there is trauma, the brain is not functioning. The social skills are lacking. The engaging piece is not there. And we're hearing a lot right now, how we are concerned of the lack of social skills that the kids, when they came back to schools, they were struggling. They were struggling to engage with their teachers and build those relationships and connecting. We're seeing a lot of bullying right now. We're seeing a lot of kids that are no longer interested in being in a classroom and learning from a teacher because they're coming back to where they came from, but it was at some point it was paused, right? In 2 years. And some of even our kids in elementary school is their first school experience. I have kids in second grade that did not go to school in first grade, did not attend kindergarten, and this is their first experience. So we have to shift our minds and understand that the kids that we were used to have in second grade that had those social skills and foundational skills from kinder and first grade no longer have them in second grade, and that we have to go back a little bit to teach those things because they are important. And I know, again, oh, we have all these gaps, academic gaps that we need to close, but we also have to make sure that we're taking care of the kids, and we're actually identifying the type of traumas that they're coming, so we can put the appropriate interventions in place. So the caregiver is responsible for the child's brain development. Who are the caregivers? It's us, right? It's whoever is in any adult that is responsible for a child becomes a caregiver. So we are responsible making sure that that brain is developing accordingly. And students who are loved at home come to school to learn. Students who aren't come to school to be loved, right? And we're seeing that a lot. We're seeing that a lot as well. We have a lot of kids that are struggling academically and are struggling with behaviors, but we also have to put a stop and see what is the background of this child? Where are they coming from? How is their home life? What are they going through? We have so many students and so many adults that are coming from very different scenarios after the crisis that we have in society right now. We have families, relatives that died during the pandemic. Some of them lost their homes. Some of them are unemployed. Some of them had to leave their country, right? And start all over again. So we have different scenarios, and these kids probably are loved at home, but not receiving the attention and all the support that they need because the adults that are taking care of them at home are also struggling. This moves us to the next one where it says that's the challenge that we face today. We have dysregulated adults working with dysregulated students. And how can we fix this? How is a dysregulated adult that is anxious, depressed, upset, angry, going through all these emotions able to understand what a child is feeling? A child is dysregulated, an adult is dysregulated, that causes complete chaos. All you hear is yelling, screaming, not understanding, not connecting, usually using punishment to solve the problem. And that is what we're facing today, just because the adults, us, we're facing a lot of challenges ourselves. Financial challenges that we're facing right now, finding jobs, finding where we're going to live. I have so many teachers coming to me so upset and sad about the rent is going up. I don't know what I'm going to do next year. I can't afford it anymore. So these are all of the things that the adults are going through right now. I'm sure that the parents are saying, how am I going to continue with all this situation? How am I going to continue to provide for my family? And it's when you're in that situation, any little thing can trigger you because you're on fight zone, you're on fight mode, you're in survival mode, and you're not thinking right. And that is what we're seeing. Hence why I am a firm believer that in order to get results in kids, we have to invest in the adults, right? And I invest so much in the adults in my class and in my building just because I need them to learn how to self-regulate. I need them to also understand and validate their emotions and feelings so they can help our kids. So one of the things that we do is the very first thing is helping teachers and every adult on campus to identify our triggers and understand the impact on our students. And I usually do a very simple activity with them where they write down all the things that trigger them in the classroom when they're with students. And you will be surprised that a lot of the responses are when they're defiant, when they're not motivated to do their work, when they don't bring their supplies from home. Well, guess what? all that goes back and stems from some type of trauma, social emotional need, or mental health need as well. A child that is being subordinate, right, is probably on fight zone and they're or survival mode, and they're trying to communicate things. Hence, when we go back to those lists and we start talking and having discussions about those lists, that's when we see and we realize, are these things really important, or is this just a child trying to communicate what's really inside of them, what they're feeling? How are they feeling in my classroom? And once we have those conversations, they start to realize, wow, that child that doesn't want to do his work because he is not motivated, because he's sad, something's going on at home. Or that child that's being insubordinate and is not listening to me and is being defiant all the time, is because he's trying to connect with me, but he doesn't know how to. And the child that doesn't bring or doesn't do his homework and or doesn't bring her things to school and supplies, it's because they're going through a situation at home. And once we start having those conversations, they start understanding what childhood trauma means. Another activity that we do is knowing their ACEs and abuse, neglect, and household dysfunction. So we talk about it and they take the test, and we do this privately because going through our ACEs can be something very sensitive. I put the link there. We're not going to do this today, for you to do it at home whenever you have a chance, if you have not done your ACE quiz. And once they do this, we have conversations, they voluntarily talk about their ACEs. And then I help them think about, so when you have all these ACEs as part of your adverse childhood situation. So what are some things that you did as a child when you were in a classroom? And we talk about those things. Oh, these were some things I did when I was a child. And they start realizing, wait a minute, I was defiant. Oh, I every once in a while didn't do my work and was not motivated. Or yeah, I couldn't bring my supplies home because I had that to school because I had that situation growing up. And then I help them associate. So your behaviors as a child were these because of what? And they start connecting and understanding all the behaviors that the kids are bringing to the classroom. So I want to hear from one or two participants today. If you are a teacher, you can share as well. If you're not an educator, that's fine. Can you share something that may trigger you from an adult or a child? Anyone wants to share real quick? You can unmute yourself. You know that principals start calling names if people don't participate, right?
That's funny. I'll go. It's Kiki. So we're just talking about regular triggers.
Yes.
Mine is disrespect.
Mm-hmm.
Big one. Yeah.
So if you had a student that was disrespectful to you, where do you think that's stemming from?
Well, I teach college, and so generally it stems from anywhere from feelings of insecurity, vulnerability, and that's generally what I have seen. And sometimes it's just anger. Sometimes they're just mad.
Frustration, yes.
Yeah, frustration. Yep.
Yep, very good. So I'm glad they have a very caring and understanding professor.
Yes, email makes it a lot easier to do that as well. So when the disrespect occurs through written communication, I'm able, after I get triggered, to regulate and draft without hitting send. So that helps quite a bit.
Yeah, and that's even more challenging because through email, I mean, it's all about how you perceive that email when you read it. What's your interpretation of that email, right?
Yes.
Really,
well,
the same when it's face to face.
Because of sunshine laws, I'm well aware that whatever I write could be subpoenaed. And so I always lead with respect and empathy. So it seems to be a balm on, you know, taking the high road no matter what they do.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
This is Sandy Fink. Sorry, I don't have a video. I just wanted to share. So when I was a fourth grade teacher for years, for me, it was just them not listening, just completely just turning their back and ignoring me. And I knew the kids were coming from a point because I had a lot of kids who it was easier to avoid me than to listen to me. They didn't want to deal with me. And now I work with high risk kids across the districts K through 12. And my trigger right now is the cell phone. So if they start talking to text, you know, they're texting, got the earbuds in and everything like that. And I tell them, I said, I know you don't want to hear what I have to say, but give me a few minutes. So like I have, because I know their trauma is severe. So it's easier to, you know, hide into the music. It's easier to hide into their videos or the YouTube or the social media. So my rule is when we have, because I go around the schools and visit them at schools. So my rule is you only got me for 20, 30 minutes. Give me those 20, 30 minutes. And it goes back to what Kiki said about respect. It's like, I want to hear what you have to say. And for me, it's, they don't like to be held accountable. They know that I care about them and love them enough to hold them accountable, but I'm going to love them through whatever pain and anger they have. But I just think it's that deflection and avoidance. And like, I think COVID was one of the worst things for our traumatized kids in so many ways, but even the kids that haven't been as traumatized, communication, it's easier to retreat into texting and not have human interaction. And it's scary to them.
It is very scary, but thank you for understanding them because it is true. I mean, for some of these students, their cell phones and their computers became their safe space or the only communication piece that they had, right? And being, a lot of these kids probably spend their time in rooms for almost a year and a half, right? Locked into rooms all day, so-called learning, virtual learning, and then using their phones all day. So that became like not only a bad habit, but probably their only safe way of communication or letting go of their feelings. So I'm glad you understand that and are being able to understand, but that is something that can definitely trigger any educator.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. So one of the things that we do, and I highly recommend, is that you invest in the adults because we need them to be stable. We need them to feel that they're safe. We need them to feel like they're being taken care of so they can care for our kids and be regulated when they're dealing with kids that are dysregulated. One of the things you can do is take stuff off their plate. And I know there's a lot on their plates right now. So I take off of their plates as much as I can, right? We need to prioritize what is the most important thing that we need to work on as a school. And those are the only things that are going to get done. And it's been challenging because this is our first year in this school. So not only this has been one of the worst years in education, but we as a team decided to, okay, we're going to be a founding team. We're going to be founders of a brand new school. So it's been challenging and there's so many things that they have to do, but I try to take off their plates as much as possible so they can prioritize the kids. One of my favorite things to do, I honestly stopped using the term self-care and started using collective healing instead of that, because I love this quote that says the cure for burnout isn't and can't be self-care. It has to be all of us caring for each other. And that is something that I promote a lot in my school. Take care of each other, be there for each other. We're going to do this together. We're going to heal together. We practice meditation, as you can see there. We practice mindfulness. I bring them yoga instructors, and every other month we do some type of session. We have a chat where we take care of each other. If someone needs something, like I need a tablecloth for transformation. There's all of these teachers saying, come to my room, I'll bring it to your room. Or if someone needs prayers, we're here for you, and we're supporting each other constantly. We have to heal together collectively. at this point, if we're taking care of individuals, right? I'm taking care of myself, you take care of your own, you take care of your own, but there's 5 that are not taking care of themselves. We're not going to be able to move forward. So I think that that collecting healing, it's vital right now in institutions, in schools, and companies, and in different workforces, because we have to learn how to take care of each other and be there for each other, because the process to heal from all of this is going to take some time. And maybe perhaps when we're finally healed, we always go back to the self-care and start thinking about more about us. But I think that this is a very important time to work together as teams and caring for each other. Be realistic with our data. I cannot say it's business as usual, everything's going to look beautiful, because we know that there are achievement gaps. We know that the kids are lacking a lot of academics that were lost during that time. So I am realistic with the data, and I know that teachers are doing their best right now. So whatever growth I see, we celebrate every step of that success. Every small success is celebrated here, just because I want them to stay motivated and know that they are doing their best. You know, I have no idea how many teachers I sit down with and they start crying, saying, I'm not a good teacher. I don't feel like I'm doing my best. And I said, sweetheart, you're doing enough. You're doing enough. You've given your all. And I feel proud of you. You see the growth, and that's what we're going to celebrate. Support your teachers with professional development that they need, not just for compliance. It's time to get those surveys going and ask them, what exactly do you need in order to be successful? You'll be surprised of the things that they're going to request. And those are the things that you need to be providing: meaningful experiences and meaningful professional development that's actually going to impact their best practices. And then building those relationships with them, invest in them, connect with them, stop every once in a while and have some random conversations, informal conversations with them about their feelings, about their families, about how they're feeling, so they feel safe and cared for. Those pictures that you see there, those are we call them here dragon's nest, but that's a Zen room that we have for our teachers. We have yoga mats, we have oil diffuser, we have blankets, we have a little bit of everything, some music. So they can go there wherever they need it. They can take a nap if they have to. They can, whenever they're having a hard day and then they need a break from their kids in the classroom, we'll go and uncover their class, and they can come here for 15-20 minutes just to de-escalate. So it's important to have those safe places for them, because what we said at the beginning, we need regulated adults that can deal with our dysregulated kids, because that's going to take more. So the mindset shift that we can do is we can't expect more from our students that we're willing to give. We have to expect things from students for far too long that they're not willing to do themselves. So if something that I, as your supervisor, upsets you and you're not, and you don't like, then why are we expecting those things from our students, right? If we're going through so many situations, why are we expecting the kids to be perfect at this time when they're really not? We're all going through the same situation at different levels, different type of traumas, different type of situations, but what we can't expect for the kids to continue as business as usual, because it's not. Another thing is stop blaming, right? The point game, it's the families, the society, is no. We're all responsible for the kids, right? We can't continue to use the kids need to comply because I said so, and being that authority figure. We have to work harder to engage the kids, and that is something that's hard to accept, but it's our responsibility right now. Hence why I promote the collective healing. It's our responsibility as adults to work harder to engage those kids to get them back. And we cannot longer hand off tough kids to social workers. This is something that I talk about to teachers a lot. And every time I have a tough kid in my classroom, I don't want to deal with him or her, and I'm going to send them to the social worker, the administrator, the counselor, behavior interventionist. Anyone can take him, but I'm not going to take responsibility of that child. That is not the case, because teachers are the safe person, the main person of that child. So one practice that we have, if there's a situation in a classroom and a teacher calls for help and is not causing any type of risk or danger to a student or any other students in the classroom or the teacher, what we do is we shift, right? I take over the class and I ask the teacher to go outside and go to conflict resolution with that child. Why do I do this? Because I want this child to connect to the teacher. I want the teacher to understand the behavior of the student and create that relationship so it can improve. If I continue to pull that kid out, that kid is going to connect with me and not the teacher. And I'm not going to be there all the time. The teacher is. So those are the things that we promote here in order to create those connections and relationships. And then we pause and we ask them to pause and allow the students and the adults to de-escalate before addressing behaviors. We give them some time. We don't start reprimanding, yelling, or accusing on the spot, because that only escalates the situation, right? We remove the student if needed. We allow them to calm down. We don't talk to them. Once they're calmed down, we ask, how are you feeling? How can I help you? What happened? Same with the teacher. And then we make sure that they connect again before sending them back, so that connection is there. I'm going to skip this one right here. So some of the options that we use is in-school suspension, timeout, lunch detention, after-school detention, and behavior support to help our students. Can someone tell me what they all have in common?
They're all like time spent out of the classroom, it seems like, or time spent away.
Yes, but what else?
They're negative.
They're punishments.
No, not necessarily. They're what? They're all in school. They're staying in school with us. And they're not punishment. We use this time to build social skills. We use this time to build relationships. We use this time to teach them how to self-regulate, understand their emotions. So this happens not as a punishment, but this happens as an opportunity for any adult on campus to connect to this child and continue working with them. Because if we send them home and it happens that this child is in a very bad situation at home, are we fixing the problem? We're not. We're making it worse. The child's going to come back to school and do it even worse. So what we're trying to do is keep them with us, because we are the experts. We understand the students and we're the educators, and we work with them on understanding their behavior and what are possible other options instead of that reaction to continue moving forward. So we teach them, so you acted this way. What were other options that you had instead of destroying your classroom? Well, I could have told my teacher. There you go. So next time, what are we going to do? Make sure you let your teacher know. Or I just had to breathe in and breathe out and concentrate on what I was doing. Okay, so let's write it down. Next time you feel that you're getting anxious or you're getting upset, these are some options that you have to make things better and not get in trouble. So we don't use it as a punishment. You're going to sit there in a corner and not talk and not look at me, and no one's going to be taking care of you. We actually take this time to connect with the students, to teach them the right behaviors, to teach them about their emotions and feelings, and to connect. Some of the things that we use in the classroom, and this is from Conscious Discipline, we give them warnings, we call the parents and establish that communication. We teach the adults and the students not to raise their voice or yelling, insisting on having the last word. Oh, goodness sakes, adults have this issue, right? The power struggle, the adult needs to have the last word, and they keep moving back and forth, and that creates a lot of problems and issues and disconnection. Using sarcasm, especially with the small kids, we cannot use sarcasm. That's not a good practice. And making accusations. An example of that, if a teacher is calling me because there's a situation in a classroom and I am trying to just go in, bring the kid with me just to have a conversation. But the teacher in the background is saying, and you did this, and you did that, and you did this in front of the class. That's going to escalate the student even more. And even worse, a really bad practice that I see is, I de-escalated the child. The child is ready to apologize. He's ready to go to the classroom and continue, have a fresh start and sit down and have a good rest of the day. And the minute I open the door to bring the student back, the teacher starts saying, well, I hope you learn your lesson. And it escalates the student again, and they break their trust. So we have to stop, take a deep breath and relax and understand. I always use the acronym Q-tip, quit taking it personal. These kids have nothing against us. It's just behavior equals communication, and we just need to learn how to understand them. In our safe zones, we have posters like these where they can identify, this is for the little ones, that they can identify how they're feeling. And if they can't talk, they can just point, or they can just let us know, I'm feeling red. All right, so take a break. And when you are feeling green or blue, I'll be more than happy to talk to you, and we can have a conversation, and we give them and respect their time. We also teach them the side of the problem. And don't we all need this? How do we react to different problems? And we talk about, how do you feel this problem was, and what was your reaction? That your reaction match the size of the problem. Your teacher told you to work on page 14 and you destroy the classroom. Do you think that that reaction matches the problem that you had? No, so let's talk about that. And we teach them how to use the calm zone. So we have this in every classroom and every area in the school, PE, cafeteria, media center. So we teach them, we spend 21 days, the first 21 days of school, teaching our students how to use the safe zones, how to read the posters, how to use the posters, how to use the fidgets that we put in there. And they use it. These are our regular babies using their safe zones when they needed a break because they were feeling anxious, upset, sad, or they just needed a 5-minute break. Sometimes I sit down with them and have a little pep talk if they want to. So some of the things that we can have, a cozy space, guidance, because they need guidance to calm down. So those are posters and signs that we have. Calming books if they want to read, fidgets if they need something sensory to calm down. And the most important thing is not just having a beautiful space in the classroom and that looks really cute, but teaching them how to use it. And this has helped us tremendously because we don't have interruptions in this classroom. Instructional interruptions, that doesn't happen anymore as often as in the past, because the student knows and feels when they're feeling escalated. No questions asked. They stand, they go to the calm corner. They spend 5-10 minutes there. When they feel calm and ready to go, they go back to their desk or with their groups, and that is it. All the teacher has to do is monitor, right? And also and make sure the child is okay, but there's no interruption happening of dealing with the child, yelling at each other, arguing with each other, reprimanding, calling the front office, someone comes and pick up the child, have a conversation, we're speaking to the child, explaining the situation, all of that. Hence why that goes back to the academics. We also have do class meetings, social skills group, and class greeters just to make them feel welcome the minute they walk in. And we make ourselves visible. I think that is the most important thing in the mornings. Is crucial, vital that the kids see us. Our goal here, we welcome our kids with music, but our main goal is that we're observing kids and identifying who needs a break before they go to class, being proactive, right? Identifying them because we know them, but every child sees a minimum of 3 adults and get 3 affirmations of them listening, someone saying, I love you, I'm glad you're here, I am so proud of you, have a great day, or just listening to their stories that they want to say because they had an amazing weekend or it's their birthday. So that is what we do, and making sure that they feel visible and loved. And not only it helps the kids, but it helps us as well, because sometimes I come to work and I am tired or frustrated and upset. And the minute I stand in that lobby with music to welcome the kids and I get these beautiful hugs and listen to their stories, that actually makes my day. So it works both ways. It helps the kids because they feel safe and cared for, but it helps us as well because we're connecting to the kids and building those relationships. And we're going to go ahead and think that failure of schools and academic performance, which we're in a situation like that right now, will continue unless there's an acceptance of how severe childhood trauma is and a commitment to solve the problems. So I'm sure that we all know of all the bills that have passed here in Florida right now, and how is this going to probably affect more the mental health and the social, emotional, and trauma of our students. So there's going to be a lot of issues and challenges because we cannot fix the academic performance because their brains are not ready to learn until we start addressing the stem of the problem. And what is most important is the heart and the brain and the emotions and feelings and the mental health of our students and the adults that are working with the students. Here's my contact information, which I will also put on the chat. So if you want to contact me, or if you want to send me an email, or if you want to see the work that we're doing at our schools, that is my contact information. Ms. Bransford, your turn.
All right. So thank you so much, Dr. Vazquez. That information helps lead into directly what I'm going to do a few scenarios of kids. And I just want to give a quick background so you understand where my brain comes from. I started teaching in a school that served 29 income-based apartment complexes, but it was the only part of Tulsa, Oklahoma that accepted drug felonies in their backgrounds. So I only had one student who didn't have an incarcerated parent when I first started teaching, and definitely was in survival mode from day one. But all of that led to my interest in policy. And so I thought that that would fix it. So I went to work on policy for a little while in Denver public schools. Knew very quickly that was not the fix to what I wanted and where my heart was. So I started working for a prison diversion nonprofit, working with adults and their kids to reunify parents who were on a banana peel between prison and coming out and trying to get sober, mainly from meth addiction. So I know in the keynote, I heard a lot of talk about the ACEs and a lot of I think it was from Miss Stanford saying, you know, as a principal, she led with those ACEs and it took a little bit of work to come back and work on the adult side. So I did try that part of it, but I was sitting in a class preparing parents for a visitation inside the jail. And one of my clients said, is in third grade, if someone would have just told me they cared about me, that I mattered, I wouldn't be here today. And when she said that, there was pretty much that moment in my life where I knew I needed to return to elementary education. So since that moment, I returned to OCPS and have been working with discipline for that entire time. And a lot of my scenarios come from a variety of children. So I don't want you to think I'm disrespecting any child's particular story when I go over the next scenario. It's a combination of some kids and scenarios I've seen that have a lot of commonalities. So in the next slide, you'll see that we're going to talk about child A, Sally, first, to hopefully give you some tactile, some hands-on conversation about what we do when we're in those most intense situations, whether you're in a clinical setting and you're doing child play therapy, or whether you're in a school setting and you're pushing in as a social worker, any of those roles that you fill in the community, or you're supporting parents with how to solve these problems. I'm hoping these scenarios can help. If you'll click to the, I can't click.
I gave you a host. I put you as a host.
Yeah, it won't let me click.
Okay.
Sorry.
There you go. No, got you.
And then the volume thing at the top.
Wait, this one right here.
Sally is a 9-year-old female in the 3rd grade. Sally lives with guardians. Either guardian is the biological parent. Sally's mother visits on an infrequent schedule. When Sally is at school, Sally loves attention from staff and her peers. She loves hugs, affection, to be a leader, and celebrations. When work is assigned independently and on grade level, Sally elopes from the assigned area to under desks or often out of the room. She also hides under desks or hurts others when in arguments with peers or when corrected in front of the class. Sally's guardians are often frustrated when the school issues discipline when Sally runs from staff. Sally will show continued defiance when being redirected in the classroom or school. Sally often ends her elopements one-on-one with an adult in an enclosed office area. Sally spent several months in foster care separated from her siblings before the biological father of the siblings offered to be her guardian.
So thank you for listening to that quick scenario about Sally. I know there's many more things that could be present, but just really quick in the chat, if you'll type whether you think this student is in fight or flight. And you can send it as soon as you have it. Thank you so much. Seeing lots of flight, saw one fight. Okay. And then the next question that we're going to go to, are there any indications of ACEs present? And that's just a yes or no. Any indication of ACEs present? You all have heard from lots of people talk about ACEs, so I know you have lots of information. Yes, absolutely. Will you click 2 slides forward, please, Dr. Vazquez?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So what is the first step the classroom teacher should take to help Sally? And then there's 2 questions there. What things need to be considered to support the adults involved? So I see a lot of responses coming in. So thank you for answering those. So yes, she was definitely in flight mode. I heard one fight, and I know that that is because of her hurting others. That's my guess. If I'm incorrect, you could type that into the chat as well. Definitely a series of ACEs present when we can assume what else could happen. Just being in foster care, being separated from biological parents. There's a lot of other things we can consider within that in her short time span. And so thinking about that, what is the first step a classroom teacher should take to help Sally? And since we're short on time, I'm just going to condense it a little bit. I'm sorry, we're changing up our process a little to make sure we have the conversation. And I think a lot of first responses to this would be that we would, if you'll go to the next slide, would be that we need to set up a plan and take care of Sally with some discipline. Maybe that might be the traditional method. Maybe a parent might think they need to issue more severe consequences within their home. But what is clear from Sally, what a lot of Dr. Vazquez said, is there is not a connection deep enough for Sally to believe that we need her to be safe. And so we may think in a lot of other students that we would start with the adult connection and making sure the classroom teacher has that connection. But this one really would begin with that safety plan. And Sally would need that safety plan, not only for herself, but to take care of the classroom teacher, to take care of the people supporting her. Because at this point in Sally's journey, it's clear she has lived in a life where she takes care of herself. So understanding the function, absolutely, thank you for that. That unmet need, what's this function of this behavior, is going to be critical to knowing. And if Sally doesn't know she's safe, then we cannot move forward. And that's going to be the most crucial for those of you that have worked with children in foster care. We know they learn skills to survive, and they adapt their entire selves to fit wherever they may be. So depending on the home, depending on the style, they've had to be the person that adapts nonstop. So a lot of times they don't know it's safe to be themselves. So as we talk about this safety plan with Sally and review where those safe places are, it's going to be critical that she knows that this safety is going to be the most important focus. We could focus on academics, we could focus on kind words and safe hands and all of those things, but Sally's going to need one goal that she can focus on, as well as her teacher, to make sure her teacher is taking care of herself. And that's going to be utilizing those safe spaces and identifying those. A lot of students like to hide under desks, and people view that as disrespect or defiance. For a lot of our students, that's the escape that they might need in that moment. And so identifying those calm corners in that safe space that Dr. Vazquez discussed earlier is critical for her. But then also letting Sally know that she's loved, cared for, and that she matters as part of the classroom community. It's going to take weeks for her to understand that those things are real and true. And it's going to take a lot of, especially without masks, right? We have to keep our face neutral. We should be able to respond to Sally in the same tone, no matter what, to make sure she knows that we are the safe, regulated adult in the classroom. And so there is some coaching with the adult that would also have to take place to make sure she's safe. And then the reason I say that that's the main thing is because if she's not safe, we can't move forward to anything else. So if she's 2 grade levels below, there is nothing we can do with academics until we access this part and get her back into her executive state. The work being wrong, being corrected, there's a lot of other habits that have been created that we have to work on untraining. So we're going to listen to John, the next scenario, because there's a few more things in there. We have a little bit of time left.
John is a 12-year-old male who can read at grade level, write, and complete grade level math work in the 5th grade. John has few friends in class. John often has behaviors that include cussing, refusal, class disruption with tapping, clapping, or shouting and touching others with his hands or objects. John will scream at his teachers when redirected and the adults who are called to support and refuse to leave the classroom. His tantrums can last from 30 minutes to several hours. Often when pulled from a classroom or part of the school after negotiating consequence by preferred adults, John would reveal his mother was drunk last night, she stole something from the store, or brought a man home to the bedroom they share. Sharing these things often led to more intense outbursts of emotion. Often the school resource officer is contacted to support removing the student from the environment.
So this student, before we go to the next one, sorry, there's a lot of things happening here. And so as you're thinking about if this student is in fight or flight, if you'll enter that before we move on from here, if you'll enter if they're in fight or flight into the chat, please. Thank you for your participation. I appreciate it. So certainly John is stuck in that fight mode, and there's a lot of circumstances here. And I think this one is a student we see often in all different, in our clinical settings. Those are our clinicians we reach out to for support in students like this. Obviously within our Department of Children and Families, there's an array of people who see students like this at 12 years of age who have these circumstances at home. But when we work within our locus of control, and we know, for example, with a student like this where DCF has been involved multiple times, but the resolution hasn't supported John's outcome, we have to change our path completely because the number of ACEs present for John is extremely high. And we know that he is doing these things for a reason, and we have to figure out what that connection looks like for John to feel safe in school. John's also a student when you hear the cussing, refusal, class disruptions, the tapping, clapping, shouting, right? A lot of those lead to power struggles. And what we have to remember as adults is whether we have our car repossessed, our house foreclosed on, and we have the worst day ever, we still have more power than any child who walks through our doors. And it's really important that we remind our staff of that there is no winning when it comes to a student like John. The only success for John is that he reduces those behaviors present and that he can eventually feel safe within our school. But a lot of times it comes to this such disruptive behavior, which obviously it is. How do we possibly get by that? So you all saw that there were ACEs present. So talking about what that first step that classroom should take and what does it look like to support adults? Those are the 2 next questions that will come up here in just a second. Yep, you can go. So in this particular situation, our adults are going to feel extremely frustrated, and we have to validate that frustration because a student like John in our classes, in our any kind of setting, is going to be disruptive. And validating our adults and coming together to have those conversations, having instant access to support is going to be really important, but certainly not the blame game. Like Dr. Vazquez said, we can't blame the mother, we can't blame our school system, we can't blame John. We have to figure out a way as a team to move forward and move past that conversation. But often school systems get stuck in I can't fix the home, so I can't fix the child. I can't do this, and it becomes an I can't. And really with John, it's going to take an entire team of people to be supportive, to be regimented in what they provide, and the language we use with John is going to be critical to ensure he knows he is safe. So if you go ahead to the next slide, building a relationship. And I say this because John is a child I've worked with many times over many years. All of us have that John in our class, or that Billy, if you've read some of the trauma-informed research. This is going to require letting go in a classroom. And this is where the taking care of the adults is important, giving them the space to say, if John doesn't complete his work today, tomorrow, or the next day, we're going to let that go to the side, because John is going to work to earn for just keeping his hands and his body to himself, right? We have to focus and keep our very specific goals with John, because he's used to chaos. His life is chaos outside of the school. So in his brain at school, you all know this, it's constant chaos. He's very rarely in that executive state. And our job to get him in that executive state is going to make him feel successful. So when we focus on his strengths, he's got good grades, he's able to work when he wants to. So how do we make sure we isolate the things he can do, how he could support anyone in his class? And how do we remove that seeking of control and power and replace it with a way that he can have power throughout his day? Because we know, based on his description of his home life, he doesn't have that power. So just remembering that adult will always have more power no matter what, and reminding our staff of that and giving them that freedom to say, we're not going to expect John to be perfect every time we walk in your room, but here's what we do expect, or here's how we can support John over time. So when we talk about what to avoid with John, right, we all can hear that those power struggles are going to be critical to avoid, and that those conversations in fight mode are not going to be productive. And so making sure as we go through that, if you'll go to the next slide, that we are using consequence over praise is going to continue to make John have these same things. I heard a lot of you from the chat earlier saying that there's ways we can reframe it. And a lot of the things with John are going to be building that relationship and that time. And then teaching that explicit regulation will be critical. So he will have to know and have it can't be his teacher teaching him the regulation, because we can't expect that on their plate. So it needs to be a qualified individual, whether that be a dean, an assistant principal, a counselor, a behavior specialist, somebody else who pushes into the school day to make sure that he can practice the social skills immediately after receiving those. And walking through scenarios with him. Social thinking has these amazing cards that have scenarios for kids that I'm happy to share a link to, but it says, okay, a student pokes your backpack. What's your reaction, right? And you go through these scenarios with kids and you walk them through what they may or may not do. John would benefit from those direct social skills, talking about specific situations. And again, that structured point cheater system that will allow him to reflect on the skill. Excuse me. So I know that was quick. We ran a little short on time, so I apologize for being quick and reviewing all that information. I just know that as a teacher, as a dean, sometimes we don't always hear what we do with those kids in those scenarios. And so we know we could have 20 different scenarios with different kids across our campuses, the way we serve them, especially in our clinical setting. Some of the most at-risk kids, as we heard someone say earlier, they get there because there wasn't a powerful adult connection somewhere before. And that's not to take blame on somebody. It's to say that we need to do a better job supporting our adults so they can be that powerful connection. And that's one of the big goals I know Dr. Vazquez we have in our schools, is how do we allow our adults to create that connection? How do we make them feel safe enough to try and risk what may not have always been traditional practice within a classroom, within a student? Because traditionally the teacher is right, the student is wrong, right? And we've shifted that mindset as we have become a more trauma-informed society. So I hope that something or some tool came from there. And if you want any more information, social thinking is where I use a lot of my curriculum from. A lot of the think sheets that they have just are laid out to match. Zones of regulation is what Dr. Vazquez showed you earlier. So those are two of the most used tools that are reflected in the work we do with kids. So I appreciate your time so much. Again, sorry for speaking so fast.
Yes, it's so much to talk about and discuss and so little time, but thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate, we share our contact information. So if you want to visit our schools, or if you would like to learn a little bit more of what we're doing or share ideas with us, because you're also very experts in this area, we would love to hear from you. So stay connected. Thank you once again for joining us today, and have a blessed and lovely weekend. Take care.